Tokia yanaleo, miyan kekansan, miwele pana e sona pitoki pona. Hey everyone, I am Greg Dan 3, and today I want to teach you about Toki Pona. Today we are going over the word la, and la is Toki Pona's most complex piece of grammar. But it is still simple like the rest of the language, so it shouldn't be too bad. The first thing you need to know is that la, that's L-A, is all about context. When does something happen, or what is it related to? Basically, la tells you that when one thing is going on, another thing is going on, or happens, or could happen. Or in another way, you could say the thing before la is a condition for the thing after it, like if and then working together in English. This could be a straight-up requirement. That is to say, the thing after la only happens when the thing before la does. It could also be where or when or why something happens. In fact, you'll find that very familiar to the prepositions. So, the idea of la is very, very broad, but I'm going to give you an overview of the many different ways it can be used, primarily focusing on phrases. So let's get into it. For starters, I'm going to be doing lots of comparisons to the prepositions, especially with la phrases, because ultimately it's a really convenient way to think about the way la works. That isn't all of it though, so there's going to be examples beyond that too. Clear that. And our first example sentence will be mi, la, sina, sewi, lon, utala. Mi, la, sina, sewi, lon, utala. So let's break this sentence down really quick. I'm going to gloss over a lot of the other grammar beyond la, so this is going to be quick, but mi, la, we'll get back to that. We want to look at the core of the sentence. Sina, sewi. So you are the highest. You are high up. It's a bit metaphorical, let's say. But it could be both literally you are up in the air and more figurative as in you are victorious, for example, or you are a winner. Lon, preposition. Utala, fight, battle, competition. So mila up at the front is here to refer to perspective. That is to say, mila is performing almost the same purpose as... that's terrible. Gracious. Tawa mi. Mila is performing almost the same purpose as tawa mi in this sentence. Altogether, the core of the sentence, sina sewi lon utala, is something like, you will be victorious in a fight or in a competition. You will be the winner of a competition. And the mila is essentially saying, that is my opinion. It is the belief of the speaker. It is true according to that person. Whoever is speaking, of course. The reason this is similar to tawa is because tawa is providing exactly that same information, but being specific about it. That is to say, you could think of tawa here as being like in the opinion of, or to, or about perspective. Okay, one person in the audience points out, sewi here could be, the idea of this sentence is like came out on top, or to come out on top. Again, that figurative idea of sewi. Either way, perspective can be carried by la. Again, this is a context-dependent thing, so it's not going to be like this all the time. For example, this here could be just talking about something that is true about the speaker. And we'll look at examples like that later. Clearing this, though, and moving on. So Since la can talk about literally any type of context, that means it can actually stand in for most of the prepositions, and the one it does so the most with is lon. So demonstrating that, sewi la mi lukin e mun mute. So the core of the sentence, mi lukin e mun mute, that is I, myself, me, looking to see, to look. So I am looking, e, some object, mun mute. Moon is celestial bodies, like stars, planets, even things that just kind of look like celestial bodies from our perspective. So, mun mute, probably lots of stars, right? Mi looking e mun mute, I see lots of stars. Up here at the front, we're clarifying where that occurs. Sewi la, mi looking e mun mute. That is to say, this person is looking up and seeing lots of stars. And to demonstrate the point about lon, this sentence would be basically the same if this were a preposition, lon sewi, instead. Lon sewi. So, mi looking e mun mute lon sewi, that is, I am looking at a lot of stars in the sky. Or, sewi la, mi looking e mun mute. Again, I am looking at a lot of stars in the sky. Exact same meaning, presented different ways. I can quibble a bit and say that technically there are ways that these two different ways to state this could be different depending on which of these you chose. Mostly because you don't have lon in the la phrase. So it's possible that the la phrase actually has more meanings, or put another way, it is less specific. But then, as it turns out, we can just have prepositional phrases in la. Now, I'll grant, I don't see this all too often these days. It's around, there's nothing wrong with it, it's perfectly understandable, but for some reason, this style is less common these days. Unsure what the deal is with that. Either way, you could say just sewi, or be more specific with lon sewi, or have lon sewi be a preposition on the end of the sentence. These all basically mean the same thing, and that's the idea I'm trying to drill into. Generalizing it, la stands in for prepositions very, very well, at least with phrases. But that is not the only thing it is capable of doing. So let me jump ahead to what if it were a modifier? Let's clear that. And I'm going to go ahead in my notes. So we're actually going to do two sentences here to give you an idea of how la can be used with contrast. And this is going to be a very modifier-centric example. So, the first sentence is, laso la kasi li pilin pona. Oh, excuse me, pona. Loye la kasi li kama moli. So two sentences, like I said. Laso la kasi li pilin pona. The core of the sentence, kasi li pilin pona, is plants feel good. And with the context in la, laso la kasi li pilin pona, that's something like, in the context of green, plants feel good. Now, offhand, that literal translation doesn't necessarily make sense, But let's get the next sentence in there and see if it makes more sense with it. Loye la kasi li kamamoli. The core of the sentence, kasi li kamamoli, is plants are dying. That's unfortunate. But the loye la is indicating that this is in the context of red, or any particular shade of red. Brown is pretty close, right? Basically, these two sentences being distinguished by this context of color are trying to describe the plants. Or put another way, it's telling you if the plant is green, if it is lasso, then the plant is fine. And if the plant is red, then the plant is dying. Now, there are other more specific ways to state this sentence. You could be more clear. You don't even necessarily have to put this information in law. Of course, the purpose is to demonstrate law, so here you go. But the point is that this law is conveying modifier information. It's very much like saying, kasi lasso li pilin pona, and then kasi loye li kamamoli. But there are plenty of reasons why you might want to put this information in a law phrase rather than in a modifier. That is to say, you're being specific about the conditional relationship between those things. This context, lasso and loye, convey this information. Kasi li pilin pona, kasi li kamamoli. I'd actually like to do another modifier example, but this one's going to be a bit more interesting. So clear that. Let's see. How about the sentence, or the core sentence, let's say, Pali sina li sama pali mi. Pali sina li sama pali mi. So this is a sama preposition. Pretty straightforward. The sentence is conveying pali sina, your work, your effort, your creation. Li sama is the same as, and is similar in some way. Li sama pali mi is the same as my work. So the translation, your work is the same as my work. Maybe referring to a job or a hobby, something to that effect, right? Any sort of work or a creation or effort. So let's stick a law phrase on there if we wanted to be more specific about this sentence. Let's say, mute la pali sina li sama pali mi. So now we're being a bit more specific about what that sama is conveying. Because remember, sama could be basically any amount of sameness. It could be anywhere from just a little bit similar, all the way to completely identical. And again, anything in between. In this context, what we're conveying with the mute la up front is this sama is a lot sama. It is sama mute. But here's a question. If you wanted to put this mute somewhere inside this sentence, where would you put it? The answer is, there really isn't anywhere grammatical to put it in the sentence. You'll see as a common learner mistake that they'll put the mute directly after sama, but unfortunately, prepositions don't do that, and it's a little awkward to do and hear. If you want to modify a preposition, or a preverb for that matter, and it's not being modified with ala, that one's an exception, of course, you have to put the modifier somewhere else. And, conveniently, la is perfect for that case. So, summarizing this, la being used for modifiers is not just a matter of, oh, I moved the modifier somewhere else in the sentence, but I'm conveying the same thing. It also lets you get around some of Toki Pona's grammatical quibbles. And this is one of them. Summarizing, you can't put a modifier on sama, But you can put a thing that acts like a modifier in la, and then convey the same information, but in a grammatical way. So, a couple more uses of la. Let me clear this one. So, another common use of la is to convey how the speaker feels about the rest of the sentence. I don't think I've gotten around to a lesson for it in this series, but it is very similar to an interjection. That is to say, a single word or a short phrase that you just state aloud outside a sentence. Most individual Toki Pona words can be used as interjections, and basically all of them can freely be used inside la phrases. So let's take a look at what that would be. The sentence will be Ike la soli li moku e lipu pali mi. Ike la soli li moku e lipu pali mi. And this one's a silly trope, so maybe you've already figured out what it means, but to go back over it, soli, some sort of furry critter, animal. Li moku, eats. E lipu pali mi. Lipu, paper or document. Pali, work. Mi belongs to you in this context. So lipu pali mi, my work paper, like homework. Or, in other words, my dog ate my homework. Well, not my, I suppose, but it's implied my dog ate my homework. It could just be a critter in general. It's like, oh no, a wolf broke into my home and ate all of my textbooks that I've been writing for years. What will I ever do? Anyway, so backing up to the la phrase here. Ike la soli li moku e lipu pali mi. That altogether is letting you know how the speaker feels about the rest of the sentence. They feel bad about it. They think this is a bad thing that has occurred. It is terrible, no good that this has happened. In other words, we're conveying the feelings of the speaker using a la phrase. And you can do this with tons and tons of little interjections. For example, you could convey that something is to specifically your own knowledge with sona mi la, and then whatever statement. You could convey that something is good. Maybe you feel great that a critter came by and ate your homework, so you're just like, Pona la soli li moku e lipu pali mi. Homework's gone, don't gotta worry about it anymore. Like I said, you can convey basically anything with this la phrase, and this is one more probable use for it. Now, still got time. Cool. So, what I'd really like to get around to is talking about cause and effect. I haven't talked about cause and effect too much with respect to la, though that is normally how it's presented. And so, while we're here, let's try one more of these preposition-like examples. Pali, sina, la, yan, mute. There we go. Li, kama, pona. Pali, sina, la, yan mute li kama pona. The core of the sentence, yan mute li kama pona, is saying many people, yan mute, li kama pona, become better, which could be like feeling better in their emotions or feeling better physically. They become healed. The la phrase, palisina la, that's conveying a conditional. Something happened, therefore something else happened. Now, Toki Pona doesn't have specific tenses, but of course, by context, you can convey the tense that's implied. So, let's say, for example, in this context, you have somebody who is a volunteer working for, say, a soup kitchen, and they're not feeling so good about their work for whatever reason, but somebody else comes along and is like, and they say, palisina la yan mute li kama pona. So in that context, we're conveying this in the past tense. That is to say, because of your work, many people feel better. Their lives have improved. But as you might have guessed, this sentence can also be conveyed with a preposition. And that preposition would be tan. So this one's basically the same as this last statement. Tan palisina. Yan mute li kamapona tan palisina. Again, basically the same, because we're conveying cause and effect, and that's what tan does a really good job at. Or rather, it conveys cause specifically, and the rest of the sentence is effect, as it were. So that's really it as far as prepositions. You also have kepiken and sama that you could try to have la stand in for. Kepiken it's easier for, but also it's probably more clear to just use kepiken. Sama actually doesn't work very well if you put it in a la phrase. You really have to have sama there doing its job, whether it is in the la phrase or preposition or with the prepositions at the end of the sentence. The word sama needs to be there. You can't just drop it and then put the rest in a la phrase and hope for the best. Explaining why is kind of complicated, but to summarize, sama is not really conditional, not really a context, it's a property. And so it just does not hit as often as the rest of the prepositions being replaced with la does hit. All right, so I have around 7-8 more minutes before we gotta run. And so I would like to get to a couple of sentences to cap off the lesson. So let me clear this one. And let's go with a sentence like, yan li pona la mi wile lon poka ona. Yan li pona la mi wile lon poka ona. All right, so when it comes to la and sentences specifically, you can basically have any sentence up front and any sentence in the back. Front and back being like before the la and after the la. The first sentence is, as before with the phrases, some context for the later sentence. And it is most commonly some kind of condition. That is to say, if this thing, if yan le pona, then mi wile lon poka ona. That if-then thing works for phrases too. But I like the preposition comparison more than that, because I think it's a little bit more honest with the way phrases function, and it's a little bit more clear as well. But the if and then comparison for sentences, that works perfectly. So up here, if yan le pona. Well, yan le pona is people are good. or a person is good, right? Mi wile lon poka ona. Mi wile, I want. Lon, a locational context. So a preposition, some location. Poka ona. Poka is side. Ona is some third person, they or them. Well, it's actually referring back to Yan. Mi wile lon poka ona. I want to be beside that person or this person. I want to be beside them. So, Yan li pona, people are good. Mi wile lon poka ona, I want to be beside them. So putting this together, if people are good, then I want to be beside them. And this relatively simple idea of parsing la with if and then, it will get you through so many sentences with la. So many. Like I said, it works for the phrases too. So if you just want to use it like a big hammer, see everything as a nail, go for it. It will carry you through those early days as you are still learning. But it works really well for sentences. And I have several more examples. So we could say, ona li tawa tomo la ona li kama wile there we go lape. There we go. So again, another example with a sentence. Ona li tawa tomo. Tawa is our preposition for going to a place, or to, from, for, or sorry, to or for. Ona li tawa tomo. They go to a building. La ona li kama wile lape. They become wanting, kama wile, to sleep. Lape. Sleep, rest, relax. So all together, if they go home, then they become wanting to sleep. They suddenly want to sleep, let's say. Things to note that are interesting in this sentence. The sentence before la can have any of the other grammar in it, basically. Well, not even basically, it just can, because it's a sentence unto itself. So this tawa tomo, that's a preposition, no problem being up front there. You can have whatever prepositions, you can have P phrases, preverbs, modifiers, it does not matter. This, before the la, is a sentence. Another thing to note, we have two ona. In this case, the second ona is referring back to the first, and the first is just not specified. We're not talking about a specific ona that has already been clarified. We're just talking about ona, some third person, whoever they happen to be. I definitely had one more thing to say, but I appear to have forgotten it. So that is okay. Actually, no, there actually is one more thing that could be said about the sentence that is very helpful. So when I glossed through this sentence before, I translated tomo as building, and then I believe I translated it as home later. So this isn't specific to the la lesson. It's more of a pragmatics thing. That is to say, on the level above the literal language, above the meaning of each word, we're thinking about not just what does the word mean, but what do these ideas mean together? And so what leads me to translate the tomo up here as home rather than some arbitrary building is the fact that the effect here is that our ona, whoever they are, wants to sleep when they get there. And, you know, it's a more common assumption, let's say, that you go home and you go to sleep. That's pretty much all there is to it. Generalizing that idea, a lot of times when you translate a Toki Pona sentence into English, it can seem really, really daunting to have to deal with all the myriad ways that a word could be interpreted, right? But you can rule out a lot of them with context and even with just the information conveyed in the sentence itself based upon your experiences, right? So again, we assume this tomo is home, mostly because when they get there, they want to sleep. But just for argument's sake, it could very well be a hotel or anywhere else you might go to sleep, right? It doesn't have to be home. It's just a common assumption. All right, I have like 3 more minutes, so I'm going to go through one more sentence and then we are done here. Let me clear these. That's a lot. Gracious. All right. How about this? Yan, Li, Olin, E, Mi, La, and I'm going to break this onto the second line just for convenience. Mi, Olin. What am I doing? Clear that. Wawa. E ona. Yan, li, olin, e mi, la. Mi, olin, wawa, e ona. The first sentence. Suya. Yan, li, olin, e mi. A person loves me. La, so some condition, right? Some context. Mi, olin, wawa, e ona. Me, I, olin, love. Wawa, so olin, wawa, strongly love, confidently, powerfully love. E ona. I really love them. And of course, we had the same trick with ona, where it refers back to something in la. So if a person, somebody, loves me, I really love them. There was actually a sample context I gave along with this one, which I'll quickly go over. If I can find it again. Here we go. Imagine you are talking with a friend and you're like, how do you make a relationship work? How do you make it work out between you and a partner or your partners? The friend comes back to you and says, if somebody loves me, I give them back. I'm translating more properly in English. I give them back all the love in the world. Mi olin wawa e ona. And that is all I had for this lesson. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something cool. You see that la can't really replace sama. Can I put sama in the la phrase? Like sama sina la mi pilin pona tawa soeli. Yes, you can. That's perfectly fine. You can put basically any prepositions in the la phrase. As I said, it's a little bit more common to not put the preposition there, and so you'd hear somebody prefer either just in this case they would move the sama to the end. So mi pilin pona tawa soeli sama sina. And then with other prepositions, they just use the phrase inside the preposition instead, more often than not. that's not a requirement. It's not that it's wrong. It's just a convention, I suppose, what I see more commonly. Any other questions? Correct. Yes, so you can modify prepositions and preverbs for that matter with ala, but you can't really modify them with anything else. It's generally considered a learner mistake to do so. It's honestly... Huh? Yeah, you can negate prepositions, so I can say, mi kepeken ala ilo, I do not use the tool. You can also say, mi kepeken ilo ala, I use not the tool. That one, it has nuances I'm not going to get into here, but to summarize, it usually means something different. Oh. You can ask in either language. I offhand I have no idea. That's gonna be like a go check the docs type question. I know that when I was writing my own lessons, it was already widespread that you could modify preverbs and prepositions with ala, but you couldn't modify them with anything else. But that's all I got. I don't remember what source that has.